Hello, Launch family. Welcome back to Dare to Launch. My name is Chris. And as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. Jeff Walker.
Hey, everybody.
And I'm also joined by the other co-host, Mr. Dan Walker.
Hey, everyone.
Awesome to have you on today. And I had something interesting to bring to both of you, actually. I saw this clip online from, a fairly prominent influencer type person about morning routines. And I was going to bring it on the show to talk about, but then when I did and I shared it with you, Dan, you had already shared this with Jeff. And Jeff, you had an interest. Can you tell us about what happened when you shared this clip about morning routines?
Yeah, the clip is more or less along the lines of hey, morning routines are nonsense. What are you doing? Get up and get to work. And it's funny because I remember bringing this up. I remember seeing this and I remember sharing it with Jeff. I think we were in the studio for some filming or for a live broadcast, or I don't quite recall. It was a few months ago, but we were in the studio and I remember sharing it and saying hey, what do you think about this? Because Jeff, I know you've been refining your morning routine for quite a long time now, and it's been a pretty core factor in your days, I feel like. But I was just I was curious about it, because we've also spoken a lot about these things that, can keep people stuck. Like, people can spend too much time spinning their wheels on things that don't matter that much. I know we've kind of had conversations on that in the past, and it was funny because, so this is me sharing with Jeff, someone who's, but just, I would say almost obsessive at times about, really getting your mornings right and the way you want to set your day up. And I remember your reaction was very immediate and was very blunt, I suppose, if you're going to put it. And it was something along the lines of well, hell yeah. When I have a great morning routine now, but when I was just desperate to make some money and I was starting to build my business, yeah, I wasn't bothering with any bleeping morning routines. And I thought that was so interesting. And so, Chris, I love you brought this conversation up, because I would love to know, Jeff, how do you feel about this now, having been on both sides in that frame where it's well, yeah, I just got to get up and get to work. I got stuff to build. And now that you've got a business with a rather large team and so many moving pieces going on and are a leader in the industry, now you do have that morning practice. I wonder what advice would you give to people? Are morning routines, is that useful? Is this wasted time? What do you think?
Well, it's interesting because you used the word obsessive, that I was obsessive about it. And I was I never thought about it that way. But yeah, I think that is pretty accurate. I have been. 2010 is when I started. The idea of a morning routine came to me. Well, it didn't come to me. It was shared with me by my friend Eben Pagan. And he's this is the time of your day where you can basically program this part of your day, because your day always starts the same. You wake up, and that's the one thing we can count on each day, is we wake up. And that if you can take the beginning of that day and program your day such that you're going to be more productive and get more done and be in a better state, that's the time to do it. And so 2010 was when I got, first was exposed to that idea, and I went deep on it. And I think I am obsessive. It's the cornerstone of my life is that morning routine. I think it's probably the cornerstone, and it's done amazing things for me. And it's evolved over and over and over again. And yes, when I started out, there was no, I didn't have 2 hours to spend prepping for the day. In fact, when I started out, I was a stay-at-home dad. And just, getting the kids to preschool, and then I have a 2 hours. That was my work day, was 2 hours until 10 p.m. And so there was no time to do anything. But yeah, eventually, once I got a handle on things, then I was able to start focusing on that idea of a morning routine. And the biggest idea is that that's the time that you can program. I think that most of us can program. I mean, if you have little kids jumping on your bed, waking you up, then that makes it harder to program. We're all creatures of habit. We tend to do the same things over and over. So why not try to plan that out and be intentional about the things we are going to do over and over?
The basic question is, are morning routines BS? And I'm kind of hearing yes and no here, because you mentioned when it was new and you were busy, there was all this stuff that you were doing. You were just getting up and working. Now that is not so much the case. Is that because you need to earn getting to that place where you have a morning routine? If you went back and you had lost everything, lose everything today and had to start from scratch, what would your daily routine look like for the first 30 days?
Well, that's a difficult question. Well, first of all, if you really did lose everything, and I did lose everything in 2005, my partner basically stole the business. That was the original business I had.
Yeah, we have an episode about that too. You can check it out. A few episodes back.
Yeah, for those of you who just know me as like this person who teaches marketing on the internet, there was a time where I taught people about the stock market. That was my business, was being a leader, teaching and helping people with their investing in the stock market. And then I had a partner in that business, and that was 8 years into it. And then my partner sold the business. So I did have to start over again. Now it's been a long time since then, so I can't remember. But I know one of the things is, I think if you lose everything, you got to take care of your mental. Your inner game is going to be crucial. And that, to me, a big part of the morning routine is getting your inner game straight, getting your inner game. And for me, that, like, a big piece of that is meditation. A super quick part of that is tapping. You know, we had Nick Ortner on one of our earlier episodes and talked about tapping. That was that it's like a 3-minute piece of my morning routine, but that meditation, yoga to get my body aligned, but also my spirit aligned. So those things are all super, super important. But if I'm not careful, I can easily spend a couple hours doing that stuff, and then you're not going to be super productive. So if I had to start all over again, I'd probably do a very short meditation just to get myself just completely get the inner game aligned, and then I would shift into creative modes. And I've done. In fact, I'm in the middle of that right now. I'm in the middle of tweaking my morning routine. Here we are 15 years in, and I'm still always tweaking it.
There's this balance between what you're talking about as far as the inner game, right? And sort of that mindset, being intentional, bringing the focus. And I guess what you would call the outer game is that's really getting stuff done for your business.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest, I guess, paradigms or mental models that I'm aware of, is the inner game versus outer game. And the inner game is everything that's happening inside your brain and all the thoughts you're having. And the outer game is the work you're doing, the interactions you're having, the learnings you're having. Both are incredibly important. You need the outer game to actually create stuff in the world. But if you don't have the inner game put together, then you're not going to create, and you're not going to create in an optimal way. And so they're both important. They're all both super, super important. Too many people I see getting started in business, and they're completely focused on the outer game and learning more and doing more, but not really creating an alignment within their own being and getting that inner game straight.
One of the most valuable lessons I learned when I was early on in my entrepreneurial journey was this moment where this coach of mine, a person who was already running like this $1 million office, super successful guy, he looked at me and said, well, your business is always a reflection of you. And so you have to make that inner game part of your success plan.
I 100% agree. I would go even further. I would say your audience, your customers, they're a reflection of you. Mm-hmm. And, I'm just thinking back, Dan, when we did that live event, it was like a few weeks ago, and we did a live event, and it so often happens during live events, we had some pretty significant issues. We had some malfunctions. We literally had a machine, the hardware break in the middle of this broadcast. And all of a sudden we went down, and we had 600 or 700 or 800 people on live with us. And it always sucks for that to happen. We reacted. This isn't the first time something went wrong in a live event for us. It's happened so many times I can't even count it in every different way you could imagine. And one of the things is people, our reaction, what people told us is they were really impressed with our reaction. When I say our, I mean mine and Dan's, because we're both live on camera. And our reaction was, be very, very calm and just super chill about it. And people were impressed by that, because there's a big audience, a lot going on, a lot of moving parts, and all of a sudden, boom, it's down. 5 minutes later, we're back up, then we're down, we're up, and it was just a mess. But we were super, super calm. You sort of have to be, in my opinion, you have to be in that situation because you're a leader. You're a leader you're holding these people's, everyone watching, everyone attending at some level, we're holding their future in our hands, and how we react, they're going to learn, they're going to take that cue on how they should act. But yeah, we just stayed super chill, super calm, and moved on, because that's our job. But that's also me having that morning routine and sitting there for 20 minutes meditating every day.
You've been refining your morning routine for like 15 years, right? Or more, potentially, I guess, because PLF's been around a long time. What's one thing that you've had that has consistently worked? And is there anything that you've completely abandoned along the way?
I don't know if I've had anything that's been in there the entire time, other than like brushing and flossing my teeth and getting some hydration right away, drinking like 16 ounces of water early on. I've had a meditation practice for 25 years now, and so that's something that is been there most of the time, almost all the time. But I also, when I was writing my book and on deadline for that, I completely switched up. And then my morning routine was, I had one rule: within 15 minutes of my feet touching the floor, I had to have my fingers on the keyboard. And then I would write for 50 minutes and take a 10-minute break, and write for 50 minutes and take a 10-minute break. And if I did that, then I've won the day. So that one, there was no meditation, there was no yoga, any of that. That was just diving right into being creative. So it's really, it's shifted over the years many times in many ways, and it depends where I'm at in my business and my life and what the number one priority is.
Sounds like it always has to serve you in the moment, right? At whatever that morning routine is. And that might shift for people as you go through. It might be for you at the time of writing a book, has to be writing. Hey, Launch family, we'll get back to that conversation about morning routines in just a moment. We actually reference a bunch of cool tools and resources for you in this episode. If you want to know how to get any of those, you can find the links in the show notes. We also, you'll see in the show notes, have some free launch resources for you, many of them over at getyouLaunched.com. So go there, check it out, and let's get you launched. Now, back to the episode. Is there anything that like people get wrong about morning routines, do you think? Or there's something where you've seen people set out morning routines and you're like, maybe you want to think differently about that?
I think, well, it's so individual, but I think it's being dogmatic about any piece of it. Like, I have to do this. Jeff says he does this thing, so I'm going to do this thing. And I think you need to periodically look at it and review, is this whole thing working for me or not?
The thing that I see is that people treat it like a hack. Like, I think people often will approach a morning routine, and it's like, you hear someone like Jeff talk about his morning routine, and what's he talking about? He's talking about doing the things to put him in the state where he is going to perform his best, right? And so I think that is the thing that's really powerful. And that's the thing that people should take from listening to people talk about the morning routines. But I feel like it's almost become a little bit of I don't know, maybe there's like a little bit of a backlash these days, or morning routines seem a little like overplayed, or people are like a little sick of hearing about them at times. And I think the thing is that they were often presented as like a hack, like, do you want to be successful? Well, do these 6 things before you start your day every day. And then people would spend so much time doing those things, which were just what someone found worked for them. And that's great for that person. But then it's almost like they feel like they can't get started, they can't do things until they do this super secret hack thing that's going to set them up right. And then before they know it, maybe they're like, either like they're really behind on their day, or maybe those things don't work that well for them, or maybe it takes a ton of willpower for them to get up at 4 a.m. and go work out and then go do a cold plunge. And so by the time that their workday starts, they've used up all of their motivation. Like, I think that's an important thing. Like, I would say just about everyone that I know or have met, I imagine it's probably pretty universal, is that we have a limited amount of motivation for each day. We have a limited amount of willpower for each day. Sure, you can stretch a little bit and make some crazy stuff happen sometimes, but I think there's also a lot of value in saying like, hey, I've got this much motivation for the day. Like, let's use it on the stuff that really matters, or on the stuff that maybe can help refill that motivation tank for you a little bit. Yeah, it's like that thought of like, okay, we'll find something that serves you, but it's not a hack, and it's never going to be a hack.
Yeah, you have that momentum that you get in the beginning of a day. Like, you can I think there's some value to getting a win early in the day, like getting some momentum on your day. And so to me, when someone says, I got a morning routine where I like, even if it's as simple as say making your bed, like there's a win that you get and you get some momentum on that. Or I take a cold shower or a cold plunge every day. That basically could be in your mind winning the game. But if you have like 17 things you've got to do and cross off your list, you're really making it a hard win for yourself in the morning. So then all of a sudden, when you get to the end of that, or if you didn't do it, you're starting off with like this shame of not having got any of this win, which was way too hard to begin with. And then when you get into your day, you're actually struggling to have that motivation because the momentum you initially set up to have, you're just not achieving. You've really made the game hard on yourself.
Yeah, I think there's so much too to just like knowing what works for you. Like I'll use myself as an example. I don't really have much of a morning routine, and I've played around with them at times, but at the moment I really don't. And I don't because I am a late night sort of person, much more than an early morning sort of person. And I work with a team. And the team often has, things that they need from me in order for them to do their jobs in order to move forward. And a lot of the people that I work closest with are in a time zone that's 2 hours ahead of me. So if I start work at 8 a.m., then, okay, it's 10 a.m. They've probably already got questions for me. And some of the people I work with, they're not only a couple hours ahead of me, but they're really early people too. So they might start at 6 a.m. their time, which is, 4 a.m. my time. So by the time I'm checking in, it's 10 a.m. for them. They might have a bunch of stuff that they're waiting for, that they need to move forward on their day. Now, if I spend 2 hours on a morning routine, then I'm not getting to anything from them until noon, until like after they're done with lunch. They're sitting around all morning. So I could get up many hours earlier than I normally would, but that doesn't tend to serve me quite so well. But what does serve me well is I tend to work later, and I work into the evening usually. And so I'll tend to kind of set stuff out, and I'll schedule messages to go out in the morning for those people. And I'll, just say like, okay, cool. When I get up, so I don't have to, sit there and think about what am I doing during the day, I can say, okay, here's the top couple most important things that I need to get done in the day. Like, this is what I'm going to focus on right when I get in, right when I start working in the morning. And then here's the other couple things. So I'll get up, just make a quick cup of coffee. Like that, if anything, that's my morning routine. Try not to look at messages until I've had a cup of coffee and just kind of have that little like chill time. And then it's like, okay, answer immediate messages and then go do the most important thing for the day. And then after that, circle back and check in on messages. Something like that, where it's more of an evening routine to set up the next day, tends to work a lot better for me, at least right now. And it's just timing, But if you're somebody who naturally, say, wakes up at 4:30 a lot in the morning, then maybe that works a lot better because you have a lot more time in the morning than you have in the evening.
I think to Dan's point, it's all about, it's understanding how you work and then creating habits that allow you to get the important work done. I think evening routines are super important. It's not as highly developed as my morning routine because, again, I think mornings, we all have that beginning where we open our eyes, whereas in the evening, it's you could be, you don't know how you're going to be sliding into the evening. It's about being intentional about how the work environment you create, or not even beyond work, about the environment you create for yourself so you can be as productive and as fulfilled and as happy as possible.
You brought up something before that was around sort of willpower being this limited resource that we get to use. And I think about all the stories I've heard of people like Bill Gates or Obama or something like that, who like already had their clothes decided for them before they left the house, right? So they don't use any of that precious resource of willpower to make decisions on things that are inconsequential to them, right? In terms of their big business or running a country, et cetera, et cetera. Do you believe that that's the case? Is willpower that limited resource that we have to be precious with? Or are there things like that that you make a decision once so that it doesn't have to be decided on every day, just because then it's easier for you?
I haven't read the original research, and I don't have the source right at hand, but from my understanding, there's significant scientific research that willpower is limited. We only have so much each day. And then we open up or we wake up with a new stash the next day. So I think that is absolutely true. I think the more you can eliminate those little decisions, the better you are. So yeah, if you're waking up and trying to figure out do I make coffee now, or do I do this or do that? And what kind of coffee am I going to have? I mean, the fewer decisions, the better you can be about eliminating those easy, simple, repetitive decisions, the better off you are.
And so coffee seems to be on all of our agendas. And that brings up another idea for me, which is what you immediately, and you mentioned hydration, like what you immediately put into your body as fuel, in my experience, a very big impact on the level of productivity for the day. What can you say about that as far as, maximizing your own productivity? Is that still personal, or are there some things people should be thinking about universally?
I think it's pretty personal. That we all have different bodies, and what works for each of us is going to be different. I do think hydration is probably something that should be a common denominator for everyone. I tend to not eat. I've been doing the whole intermittent fasting for, it's coming up on a decade now, and I'm not crazy religious or dogmatic about it, but I usually don't eat breakfast, and it's usually probably 11 before I eat breakfast. And I think when I'm hungry, I can be a little more creative.
I've noticed that too. Like my brain thinks a little faster when I've got a little starvation on mode on, right? Or my focus comes a lot easier than when I don't have the food in my belly, and that can often lead to distraction or lethargicness throughout the day. If I like eat a big, huge brunch or something like that, I'm like, I'm done for the day.
It's weird, and I spent a year in keto a while back, like real keto, where I was testing my blood every day. So pretty deep ketosis. There's some things I do not miss about that, but I think that the level of mental clarity I had in general was really pretty special. So I almost want to go back to keto for the mental piece.
On the other side, it's funny. Everybody's individual. Like one of my only rules is have something to eat immediately. Or actually, technically, the rule is don't have coffee without also eating something. And maybe that's more, I don't know, maybe I drink more coffee than you guys. There's a good chance of it. But I love having coffee in the morning, and I don't actually feel particularly bad if I don't have coffee. I don't get headaches. I don't feel bad, but I just really like it. And so it's something that gets me, it's that's often okay, if I get up out of bed, I get to go have coffee. So all right, let's go. But then I'll just pretty much just drink coffee until my body's like, dude, you got to stop. And so if I don't eat food right away, I'll just get really anxious and terrible feeling. So I'm all right, eat a little bit of food right away too.
But this brings up another idea, because so much of that, what you're describing, is just a self-awareness of what am I dealing with in this moment? Did I have too much coffee? Did I have not enough coffee? Am I dehydrated? Do I need water? Do I need food? This self-awareness, I don't think that's inherent. I don't think everybody necessarily has that, because I've gone through it before where I'm why do I feel anxious right now? And then I look at the hoggle of coffee that I drank that day, right? This massive amount. And I'm oh, I have nothing to be anxious about for whatever reason, but I drank way too much coffee this morning. So that's where my mind has gone to. And sometimes you just have to have this moment where you realize what's really going on in your head in order to be able to be intentional about what's happening for your inner game.
And I would say not just in your head, but in your whole body. And our mind is beyond what's in our head. Our mind is beyond our brain. Our whole body is part of our mind. And so 100%, being aware of what's going on. And just for me, it's about optimizing it. It's about making it better. It's about controlling the inputs that are coming in. That's we haven't even gone there yet. Just controlling my state and creating a state such that, Tony Robbins uses, when I interviewed him a few years ago, he talked about having a beautiful state. And I think that's a lovely word. I want to be in a productive state. I want to be in a grateful state. I want to be in a creative state. I want to be in a happy state. And it's picking the pieces of the day that I can tweak to move me in that direction.
You mentioned inputs, just even that right now, managing inputs. Can you talk a little bit more about what that is? Because to me, it's my cell phone is a huge input device, right? And checking that first thing in the morning doesn't always serve me. So like, how do you think about inputs?
The world wants to fill your day with messages, with social, with text, with email, with YouTube. There's an endless amount of inputs, way more than we've ever dealt with as humans. If you don't take control of those inputs, then your day is going to be scheduled by other people, and and not just scheduled, but it's going to be filled by other people. And we as entrepreneurs, we get paid to create, not to consume. And so yeah, I have all kinds of guardrails around me to, I don't, my phone never goes upstairs to my bedroom. My phone's never in my bedroom unless for Ski Fridays, where I need to set an alarm to get up. That's my one exception. But and my phone is always on silent. I don't. There are no apps that that can give me notifications. I got notifications turned off on all apps. I don't read the news. I don't look at the news. Figure I'm on that low information diet. If something's really, really critical, I'll have enough people around me who will be talking about it. When I get up in the morning, I do the first thing I do is my tapping and my meditation, and both of those are on my phone. But I just go straight to those apps. I'm using those apps, and then I turn it. Then I put it away. The first inputs that I will accept into my day generally are from my team. We use Slack for communication. So that's the first thing I'll do is I'll go check Slack. Then I'll go check messages. But that's usually at least at minimum 2 hours into my day, often 3 or 4 hours in, because I've got a big team. It's important work we're doing. I have to support my team. I have to support my clients. And inputs don't support them. Outputs do.
I love what you just said there. As entrepreneurs, we get paid to create, not to consume. I just wanted to emphasize that because that's such a daily mantra you could be saying to yourself, because how often I catch myself like listening to a podcast or consuming YouTube videos or doing this kind of thing, thinking that might be what serves me. But in actuality, when I get away from that consumption and into the place of creation, that's where the real entrepreneurial job lives, right? Like that's what you're supposed to be doing. How do you get into that creative space? Is there some hacks, or I don't like the word hacks, but are there some strategies that are effective for you around getting into creation?
In the modern world, there's a lot of expectation around that. If I text you, then there's almost this expectation that you're just going to text me back. Or if that someone, calls someone, that the person's going to pick up and just be available to talk. Or if you send an email and someone's going to reply. And just the thought that that's a very new thing in the world, right? It wasn't until quite recently, so I'm 35. And when I was in high school, even, that was not a thing so much, where like the world used to be okay with you reach out to somebody and you expect that they will get back to you, but it's not going to be within seconds or within minutes, or, maybe if they get back to you that day, like that's pretty quick. But, the way the modern world is, there really is that expectation of that, and that's a new idea. And to me, that idea often can really create stress. Can almost create a sense of anxiety. Someone's asking you for something and it feels like, okay, I got to get back to you right now. I just think it's a really powerful idea to step back and to think like, okay, someone reached out to you. Like, is this something that needs to happen right now? And sometimes it is. And sometimes it's great to be able to reach out to somebody and get an answer right away. I think the majority of times there's a benefit to being like, okay, cool. I need to stay focused on what I'm doing right now. I need to be focused on this task. I can't just be dropping and jumping off to, something wherever it is. I heard it from you, Jeff, originally, like, the thought of if you set the expectation for people contacting you, and that it's okay to set an expectation of like, I will get back to you, but it might not be that exact moment.
Hey, Chris, I got a new thing I added to my morning routine. Just to break up your flow here.
Yeah,
I just added this in the last month and a half.
Oh, what is it?
And I love it. In fact, I might have mentioned this before we recorded. It's an app. And again, it's another thing on my phone. It's called Readwise, Readwise. Basically what it does is it pulls all of your Kindle, all of your highlights. If you read on Kindle and you highlight on Kindle, it will pull all of those highlights into an app, and then it will surface them to you. So it will so I have it set. So each morning it will show me 7 highlights from things I've highlighted over the years. And I've been reading Kindle books for a long time. I've got about 3,500 highlights. Turns out I didn't know that. I just had highlighted these. And so every morning I get to read, 7 pieces of wisdom, and often I'll keep on going to another 7 and another 7 and another 7. And there's other ways you can add in highlights beyond the Kindle. That's all I have done. It's a super cool app. And basically every morning I get this like 3 or 4 minute blast of great wisdom from this app. So I'm absolutely loving it. So it goes, for me, it's like tapping, meditation, Readwise. And that's all takes about 30 minutes.
That's really cool. That's a really cool feature. I've never, that makes me want to be using more Kindle books now, because I read usually physical books. And as cool as that is, you can't just draw all the highlights from a physical book. But the idea of doing it on a Kindle, that is so cool.
Yeah, I do. I actually read a lot of physical books as well. In fact, I'm mostly fiction on Kindle and nonfiction physical. But over the years, I guess I've read enough nonfiction on Kindle. Or for the really great books that I've read physical, I'll end up getting a Kindle too, so I can always have it with me, and then I'll go in and I'll highlight those. So.
I think that's so important to be like in many ways controlling what that first state is of your day, taking that moment and looking, I'm going to look at these pieces of gratitude, or I'm going to look at these pieces of wisdom. I know some people like Penn Jillette, not personally, but like he is a journaler and an avid one for like 20 years. And he always, every day, looks at like last year, the same day, 5 years and 10 years now that he can do that. And it just allows him to see, what has been happening over this time. Where was I a year from now, a year ago, 5 years ago, and 10 years ago? And that ability to just immediately look at that and see the journey of like, wow, he would say, if I saw I was in an argument a year ago that was the same argument, then I need to do something about why am I still having this argument? Like there's this real self-reflective journey thing that he gets to look at. Do either of you journal, or is that part of your kind of routine at all?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, although for me, it's not a morning thing. It's almost more like a debrief of what's going on at the end of the day more than anything.
So when I first got Tony Robbins' Personal Power 2 back in the mid 90s, he said you should journal because it's just important to do. So I started journaling in the mid 90s, and I think I'm on journal number, 62 or 63, something like that. But it is not part of my routine. It's just something I do some of the times. And I like it, but it just isn't hard baked into a daily routine.
That's neat, though. That journaling is something you've done for that long period of time. Is there times where you go back and look at it again, or is there any intentional parts of your routine where that happens?
Not often enough. In general, I find there tends to be real value in going back, but it's just, again, that's not something I've programmed in. And I sort of wish I did that more often.
There's just too many too many things like that, though. There's too many things that would be valuable to do on a regular basis. But if you did all of them all the time, well, you'd have no time for doing anything else.
And Chris, I think I mentioned earlier that really, like right now, my routine is evolving. And that's because we're in a state, we got a lot of big projects in the business that we're super excited about, big creative projects. And right now I'm feeling like I need a greater focus on that output, on my creative work. And I love the person I am because of that morning routine that I've had, that I keep on, all the inner game work. It makes me a better person. It makes me a better husband. It makes me a better friend, community member. It just makes me happier. And right now I'm a little torn because I need to turn the volume up on the creativity. So right now what I'm doing is I'm literally this week playing with bringing more of those focused creative writing sessions in early on in the day. And it's a bit of a dance. I mean, it's like a dimmer switch. It's not like you have to be all on for the inner game or all on for that creative game. You can turn them up and down. And that's what I'm working on right now, literally this week.
Is there anything great that you're noticing that really brings out that creative side of yourself more than the, I guess, the non-creative side, the consumption side?
A big piece is like fingers on the keyboard. And I can get caught up in just trying to solve, like if I have a creative problem or something I'm looking for a solution to, I can get caught up in like trying to plan the big picture and the small picture and everything all outlined and perfect. And I can spend too much time in that planning mode. That's just part of me. One of the gifts I have is to be able to see the big picture and the details at the same. A lot of people are one or the other. I can see them both, but I can also get caught up in trying to make a perfect plan in my head. And so I find just putting my fingers on the keyboard, and then I literally, so I'll put on some headphones, I'll put on some binaural beats. You guys can all Google that, what that is, but I put on binaural beats to take me into a deep creative state, and I'll set a timer for 50 minutes, and I'll have a task. I'll have something I'm working on. And the rule is I got to, as long as I have my fingers on the keyboard for those 50 minutes, it's a win. Lo and behold, even though I feel like I'm stuck and I got that block, if I just put my fingers on the keyboard and start typing, it'll all just flow.
Why 50 minutes? Is that something you discovered over time?
Yeah, it's a part of it's the Pomodoro deal. And a lot of people do this. I think the official Pomodoro, and you guys can go Google that. I think it's Pomodoro. And I don't know who invented this, but someone taught it to me long, long ago. And I think a lot of people do 30 minutes or 35 minutes. For me, I just found 50 minutes is the right amount. When I'm sort of, if I'm fully in on it at about 50 minutes, I basically need a bit of a break. And then I'll do 10-minute break, and then I'm back on it. I'll literally set a timer for 10 minutes, and then I'll be back on it for another 50 minutes and take another break. And frankly, at that point, it goes in the win column, because I think so many people are walking around so distracted all the time that there aren't that many people that are getting 2 hours of creative work done. There have been times where I might do 4 of those sessions, and that's like a superhero day. But yeah, it's, putting on those beats, and I now put my fingers on the keyboard, and it is time to work.
You just finished part 1 of our 2-part episode on morning routines. To make sure you don't miss out on part 2, hit subscribe. Do you have a morning routine that works for you? We want to know what it is. You can post about it on Threads under the hashtag #DareToLaunch, or go to daretolaunchshow.com and submit a voicemail telling us about your morning routine. Thanks a lot for listening, and we hope this conversation inspires you to dare to launch.